I never thought my world could shatter in a single night, but it did. I'm Jessica, and at 56, I still feel the chill of that rainy autumn evening in Ohio, when the man I loved for 25 years, my rock, my Mark, looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. Our marriage was a gallery of sunlit memories, beach vacations, and anniversary dances under backyard lights, but beneath the smiles, something dark was brewing. That night, in a dimly lit hotel room, surrounded by laughter that felt like daggers, I was pushed into a moment that tore my heart apart. What did Mark ask of me that changed everything? Rain taps against the window like 1,000 tiny fingers, restless and insistent, as I sit curled up on my worn-out couch in this little apartment of mine in suburban Ohio. The air smells of chamomile tea, steaming in the mug cradled between my hands, a faint comfort on a night that feels heavier than it should. I'm Jessica, 56 years old now, and I've spent more evenings than I can count sifting through the past, trying to make sense of where it all unraveled. The photo album lies open on my lap, its pages yellowed at the edges, each picture a frozen moment of a life I thought would last forever. There's me, smiling wide on a beach in Florida, the sun glinting off my sunglasses, and beside me, Mark, my ex-husband, his arms slung around my shoulders like he owned the world. 25 years we shared, a lifetime in some ways. And yet, here I am, alone, tracing the outline of his face with a trembling finger. Mark was a force of nature, even in his late 50s during the twilight of our marriage. He had this booming laugh that could fill a room, a charisma that drew people in like moths to a flame. Everyone loved him. Neighbors, co-workers, strangers at the grocery store. He'd flash that grin of his, and suddenly, you felt like the most important person in the world. I see it in these photos, the way he's always at the center, commanding attention without even trying. There's one from a holiday party, him in a tacky Christmas sweater, surrounded by his close-knit group of friends, all laughing at some joke I can't remember. And there, off to the side, is Daniel, his best friend since college. Daniel was quieter, in his early 50s then, with a sly smile that always seemed to hide something. He had this mysterious air, like he knew secrets no one else did, and I'd catch him watching The Room sometimes, his eyes sharp and unreadable. I never thought much of it back then. I was too busy being Mark's shadow, the loyal, reserved wife who trusted him with every piece of my heart. I flip another page, and there's our anniversary dinner, the 20th one at that fancy restaurant downtown. I'm in a deep blue dress, my hair swept up, and Mark's leaning in close, whispering something that made me blush. I remember feeling so safe with him, like nothing could touch us, like our marriage was carved in stone. Even when his spontaneity unnerved me, those last-minute trips, the late nights out with friends I barely knew, I pushed the unease aside. He was my rock, my constant. How could I doubt him? These pictures, they're a gallery of happier times. Vacations to the mountains, holidays with too much pie, anniversaries where we danced under string lights in our backyard. Each one stings now, a reminder of what I lost, of what I didn't see coming. There's a night that keeps coming back to me, sharper than the rest, even after all these years. It was about 10 years ago, a Friday evening in the thick of autumn, when the air had that crisp bite to it, and the leaves crunched underfoot like brittle secrets. I was in our cozy kitchen, the smell of simmering spaghetti sauce and garlic bread wafting through the house, a simple dinner to cap off a long week. My job as a school librarian had drained me. Endless shelving, managing rowdy kids, and wrangling overdue books. All I wanted was to sink into the couch with a glass of wine and let the world fade away. But then Mark came home, bursting through the door with an energy I hadn't seen in weeks. His face was split wide with a grin, his eyes sparkling like he'd just won some unspoken lottery. I couldn't help but pause, wooden spoon in hand, as he strode over, his work boots still on, tracking a bit of dirt across the tile. "Jess, you're not gonna believe this," he said, his voice brimming with excitement. "I've got a surprise for us tonight. We're going out." He didn't even wait for me to ask before spilling the details. A night at a local hotel bar with his buddies to celebrate Daniel's big promotion at work. My heart sank a little. Mark's friends, especially Daniel, Greg, and Tony, were a loud bunch, always swapping stories over beers, their laughter booming like thunder. I wasn't always at ease around them, feeling like the quiet outsider in their rowdy circle. Plus, I was bone-tired, my shoulders aching from hauling stacks of books all day. I started to protest, mumbling something about just wanting a quiet night, but Mark wasn't having it. He wrapped me in one of those playful bear hug embraces, his warmth seeping into me, and whispered, "Come on, sweetheart. It's gonna be a night to remember. I promise." His enthusiasm was a tidal wave, and before I knew it, I was swept up in it, a reluctant smile tugging at my lips. So, I gave in. I headed upstairs to get ready, rifling through my closet for something that felt right. I settled on a modest navy dress, the kind that hugged my frame just enough to feel nice but not flashy, paired with a light cardigan to ward off the evening chill. Standing in front of the mirror, I dabbed on a touch of lipstick, a soft rose shade, and caught my reflection. There was a flicker of excitement in my eyes, a rare flutter in my chest at the thought of a night out. It wasn't often we did things like this, spontaneous and carefree. And for a moment, I let myself imagine it'd be something special. I smoothed my hair, took a deep breath, and headed downstairs where Mark was waiting, looking sharp in a dark button-up, his grin still plastered on. The drive to the Silver Oak felt like it stretched on forever, though it was just a short jaunt across town, the hum of the car engine mixed with the soft patter of rain on the windshield, and I kept my eyes on the passing streetlights, trying to shake off the lingering exhaustion. Mark was buzzing beside me, chatting about nothing in particular, his hand resting on my knee like it always did. When we finally pulled into the hotel parking lot, the neon sign glowed through the drizzle, casting a hazy light over everything. We met up with Greg, Tony, and Daniel at the bar downstairs, their voices already loud over the clink of glasses and the murmur of other patrons. A few drinks in, the night seemed to loosen up, and even I started to relax, letting their laughter wash over me. But then Mark suggested we take the party upstairs to a room he'd booked for the occasion, just to keep the good vibes going. I didn't think much of it at first, just followed along with the group, my wine glass still in hand as we piled into the elevator. Stepping into the hotel room on the 5th floor, it was nothing fancy, just a standard suite with a small sitting area, a king-sized bed tucked against one wall, and a minibar stocked with overpriced bottles. The carpet was a muted gray, the curtains drawn tight against the rainy night outside. The mood was still light, almost carefree, as Greg cracked open a bottle of whiskey with a dramatic flourish, pouring shots for everyone while Tony fiddled with a portable speaker, blasting some old rock tune that echoed off the walls. Daniel sprawled out on the couch, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp, watching the room with that quiet intensity I'd always noticed, but never quite understood. I settled into an armchair next to Mark, sipping my wine, the warmth of the alcohol dulling the edges of my nerves. For a moment, it felt like any other night out, just a group of friends unwinding after a long week. But then Mark leaned in close, his breath hot against my ear, and whispered something that made my stomach twist. "Hey Jess, I want you to do something fun for me." His tone was low, almost playful, and I let out a nervous laugh, assuming it was some kind of joke. I turned to look at him, expecting that familiar grin, but his face was serious, his eyes glinting with something I couldn't place, something that sent a shiver down my spine. Before I could ask what he meant, he nodded toward Daniel, still lounging on the couch, and said, "Go over there, give him a hug. and kiss him on the neck. My heart stopped. The room seemed to tilt, the music fading into a dull buzz in my ears. I must have misheard him. There was no way he'd just said that. I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. What? What do you mean? But Mark just nodded again, his expression unreadable, urging me on like this was the most natural thing in the world. I glanced around, and that's when I noticed the shift. The others, Greg and Tony, had gone quiet, their smirks frozen in place, their eyes locked on me like they were waiting for a show. The air felt thick, suffocating, and I realized they were in on whatever this was. My pulse hammered in my throat, my hands trembling as I clutched the stem of my wine glass. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but I felt trapped, pinned under the weight of their stares. Slowly, almost like I was watching myself from outside my own body, I stood up, my legs shaky beneath me. Each step toward Daniel felt like wading through quicksand, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts, none of them making sense. When I reached him, I leaned down for a quick, awkward hug, my arms barely touching him, and then, with my face burning, I pressed a fleeting kiss to his neck, just below his jawline. It was mechanical, done out of sheer shock more than anything else, but before I could pull away, Daniel's hands were on my waist, firm and unyielding, pulling me closer. I'm standing in the hotel bathroom now, the fluorescent light harsh and unforgiving as it glares down on me. My reflection in the mirror is a mess, makeup streaked and smudged from the tears that won't stop falling, my eyes red and swollen like I've been punched in the soul. My hands tremble as I grip the edge of the sink, the cold porcelain biting into my palms. I turn on the faucet, letting the icy water rush over my fingers before splashing it onto my face, desperate to wash away the shame, the confusion, the raw ache that's clawing at my chest. But it doesn't help. Nothing can rinse off the memory of what just happened out there in that room. My mind keeps replaying it, over and over, like a broken record I can't shut off. Mark's voice, so calm, so casual, as he urged me to cross a line I never imagined I'd be pushed toward. The way he watched, his eyes glinting with something dark, something I didn't recognize in the man I've loved for 25 years. How could he? How could he sit there, so composed, and take pleasure in seeing me unravel like that? I choke on a sob, the sound echoing off the tiled walls, and I press a wet hand to my mouth to muffle it. My stomach twists, nausea rising as I think about the moment Daniel's grip tightened, pulling me in, and the way the others just stared, their silence louder than any words. It felt like I was on display, a piece of entertainment for their twisted amusement. I can still feel the weight of their gazes, burning into me, stripping away every ounce of dignity I had left. Rage bubbles up inside me, hot and bitter, mixing with a deep, aching shame that makes me want to disappear. How did I let this happen? How did I not see this side of Mark before? 25 years, and I thought I knew every part of him, every laugh, every quirk, every dream. But now, I'm questioning everything. Was this always in him, hidden beneath that charming smile, waiting for the right moment to surface? Or did I miss the signs, too blinded by love to notice the cracks? Through the thin bathroom door, I hear muffled laughter from the room beyond, a sound that slices through me like a knife. It's them. Mark, Daniel, Greg, Tony, carrying on like nothing happened, like they didn't just shatter my world. My stomach churns harder, bile rising in my throat, and I have to grip the sink tighter to keep from collapsing. Part of me wants to storm out there, to scream at Mark, to demand answers. How could you do this to me? How could you betray me like this? But the thought of facing him, of seeing that unreadable look in his eyes again, terrifies me. What if he laughs it off? What if he says something worse, something that breaks me even more? I'm not ready. I'm too raw, too overwhelmed. My emotions a tangled mess I can't begin to unravel. I just need to get out of here, away from this suffocating space, away from him. With shaky fingers, I fumble for my phone in my pocket, the screen blurring through the tears I can't blink away. I pull up Linda's contact, my sister, my lifeline, and start typing a message. My thumbs slip on the keys, the words coming out jagged and desperate. Please come get me. I'm at the Silver Oak. I need you. Now. I don't explain. I can't. Not yet. I hit send and lean back against the wall, the cold tile seeping through my dress as I slide down to sit on the floor. Time drags on, each second stretching into eternity. I check my phone again and again, waiting for her reply, my breath hitching with every passing minute. It feels like hours, though the clock tells me it's barely been 20. My mind keeps spiraling, replaying Mark's words, the way his voice dipped low, coaxing me into something so wrong. I wrap my arms around myself, trying to hold the pieces of me together. But I feel broken, as the morning light creeps through the blinds of Linda's guest room, pale and cold, slicing across the bed where I've been lying awake for hours. My eyes are gritty, burning from a night of no sleep, my mind a relentless loop of jagged memories from that hotel room. Every time I close my eyes, I see Mark's face, that unsettling glint in his gaze, and I feel the weight of Daniel's hands, the suffocating pressure of being watched, judged, used. My chest aches like it's been hollowed out, and I can't tell if it's grief or rage or some toxic mix of both. I pull the blanket tighter around me, but it doesn't shield me from the truth that's clawing at my insides. I can't go back to the life I had, not after what happened. Linda's soft knock on the door pulls me out of my spiral. She steps in, holding 2 steaming mugs of coffee, her face etched with quiet concern. She doesn't say much at first, just hands me a mug and sits on the edge of the bed, her presence a steady anchor in the storm of my thoughts. The coffee's bitter warmth is a small comfort as I take a sip, my hands trembling slightly around the ceramic. "You don't have to talk if you're not ready," she murmurs, her voice gentle but firm. "But I'm here, and I need you to think about what you want now, Jess. Not what Mark wants, not what anyone else expects, just you." Her words hit me like a punch, because I don't know what I want. Or maybe I do, and I'm just too scared to admit it. I stare into the dark swirl of my coffee, my mind wrestling with itself. There's a part of me, small and fragile, that still clings to the Mark I thought I knew. The man who'd surprise me with wildflowers on a random Tuesday, who'd hold me close during thunderstorms, whispering that everything would be okay. Could I forgive him? Could I chalk this up to some warped, one-time lapse in judgment, a moment of weakness I could bury if we worked hard enough? But then the larger part of me, raw and unyielding, rises up. I can't unsee what I saw, can't erase the way he orchestrated my humiliation like it was a game, a twisted performance for his amusement. The betrayal isn't just a crack in our marriage. It's a chasm, and I'm standing on the edge, knowing I can't cross back to him. I set the mug down on the nightstand, my decision crystallizing with a cold clarity I didn't expect. I grab my phone, my fingers steady despite the lump swelling in my throat, and dial Mark's number. He picks up on the second ring, his voice bright, almost casual, as if nothing's wrong. "Jess, hey, you coming home soon?" I don't let him finish. My voice cuts through, icy and controlled, each word a brick in the wall I'm building between us. "I'm not coming home, Mark. Not today. Not ever." There's a pause, a heavy silence on the other end, and then he stumbles into an explanation, his tone shifting to something desperate, almost pleading. Look, it was just a game, okay? I thought you'd be open to trying something different. I didn't mean to hurt you." His words are like poison, seeping into the wounds he's already carved. A game? He thought I'd be open to being paraded like that, to having my trust shattered in front of his friends? Disgust coils tighter in my gut, and I hang up before he can say more, the click of the call ending louder than any scream. Over the next few days, Linda becomes my rock, helping me navigate the wreckage of my heart. She's there when I break down in her kitchen, sobbing over a box of old letters Mark wrote me early in our marriage. She's there when I make the call to a divorce lawyer named Karen, a woman with a sharp, no-nonsense edge to her voice that cuts through my fog of doubt. Karen doesn't sugarcoat anything when we meet at her small. As I sit here in my Ohio apartment, the rain outside slowing to a gentle drizzle, I take the last sip of my chamomile tea, the warmth lingering in my chest like a quiet companion. It's been 10 years since that night at the Silver Oak, 10 years since my world shattered in ways I never thought possible. I'm 56 now, and though the years have softened some edges, the weight of the past still sits with me on nights like this. I glance out the window, the streetlights casting a faint glow on the wet pavement, and I let my mind wander back over the decade that's passed, piecing together how I've managed to rebuild from the ashes of a life I once knew. The divorce with Mark was finalized within a year of that awful night. It was a grueling process, every meeting with Karen, my lawyer, feeling like peeling back another layer of raw skin. But in the end, I walked away with half of our shared assets, enough to carve out a fresh start in this modest apartment, a space that's become my sanctuary. I never spoke to Mark again after those initial bitter conversations. Last I heard through a mutual acquaintance, he'd moved to Florida with a new girlfriend, starting over in a way I couldn't fathom. I find myself hoping he's changed, that he's confronted whatever darkness drove him to betray me so deeply. But deep down, I doubt it. Some wounds leave scars that whisper doubts forever. I also cut ties with Daniel, Greg, and Tony, severing every thread that tied me to that hotel room. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing their faces, of hearing their voices, knowing they'd been complicit in my humiliation. I needed a clean break, a chance to breathe without the shadow of that night suffocating me. In the early days after the split, I felt like a hollow shell, wandering through my days with no sense of who I was without Mark by my side. That's when I knew I needed help, more than Linda's unwavering support could provide. I found Dr. Ellis, a counselor with a gentle demeanor and eyes that seemed to see right through to the pain I couldn't voice. Sitting in her office, surrounded by soft beige walls and the faint scent of lavender from a diffuser, I began to unravel the tangled mess of shame and betrayal that had knotted itself inside me. She didn't push, didn't judge, just listened as I poured out the story of that night, the way I'd been made to feel like an object, a pawn in a game I never agreed to play. Over months, then years, Dr. Ellis helped me rebuild my sense of self-worth, brick by painful brick. She taught me to see that what happened wasn't my fault, that I hadn't invited the violation of my trust. Slowly, I started to believe her, to feel the weight of guilt lift, even if just a little. But healing wasn't just about talking through the pain, it was about finding new ways to fill the empty spaces in my life. I threw myself into hobbies I'd never had time for before. Painting became my refuge. There's something about the stroke of a brush on canvas, the way colors bleed into each other, that feels like letting go. I'd spend hours in my tiny spare room, now a makeshift studio, losing myself in creating landscapes and abstract swirls that mirrored the chaos and calm inside me. Gardening, too, became a quiet joy. Digging my hands into the cool earth of my small backyard plot, planting seeds and watching them grow, felt like a metaphor for my own slow rebirth. I nurtured dahlias and marigolds, their vibrant blooms a stark contrast to the gray days of my early recovery. And each new sprout reminded me that life persists, even after the harshest winters. Reconnecting with old friends also became a lifeline. People like Marissa and Tilda, who I'd known since my school days, welcomed me back into their lives with open arms and no questions asked. They didn't pry about the divorce or the reasons behind it. They just showed up with casseroles, long walks in the park, and late-night phone calls when the loneliness crept in. Their support was a balm, a reminder that I wasn't alone. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.